Why does Israel want Palestinian lands? Let's start from the beginning. The roots of this conflict reach deep into the annals of history, starting with the birth of the Jewish nation itself. According to the Hebrew Bible, the lands of Israel were promised to the Jews by God. A divine decree that has echoed through the ages, but it wasn't a one-way journey. The Jewish people faced a series of exiles, collectively known as the diaspora, scattering them across the globe. Yet, no matter where they went, the Jews never lost sight of their ancestral homeland. Their longing for a return to Israel was encapsulated in their prayers, their literature, their very identity. It was a yearning that transcended generations, a beacon that guided them through centuries of persecution. Then, in the late 19th century, a new movement emerged, stoking the embers of that age-old desire. It was called Zionism. Founded by Theodor Herzl, Zionism was more than just a mere longing for home. It was a political movement, a call to action that aimed to establish a Jewish state in the land of Israel. The Zionist movement gave voice to the Jewish people's yearning for a state of their own. It was a response to centuries of persecution and oppression, a dream of safety, sovereignty, and self-determination. It was a plea for a home where they could be free to live as Jews without fear. The Zionist vision was simple, a Jewish state in the land of Israel, but the path to realizing that vision was anything but. The land they yearned for, the land of Palestine, was not empty. It was home to another people, the Palestinians, who had their own dreams and aspirations, their own ties to the land. As the Zionist movement gained momentum, so too did the tension between the Jewish immigrants and the Arab Palestinians. The dream of one group clashed with the reality of the other, setting the stage for a conflict that would reverberate through the decades. The stage was set for a collision course, as the land of Palestine was not empty. Enter the British, promising the same land to two different people. In the early 20th century, Britain played a crucial role in shaping the Israeli-Palestinian landscape, with the notorious Balfour Declaration of 1917. This document, issued by British Foreign Secretary Arthur Balfour, expressed Britain's support for a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. However, this was no simple promise, as the land was already inhabited by a majority Arab population. The British Mandate of Palestine, established after World War I, further complicated the situation. The mandate aimed to implement the Balfour Declaration, but also recognized the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities. This paradoxical mandate led to increasing tensions between the Jewish and Arab populations. During this period, Arab nationalism was on the rise, spurred by a growing sense of betrayal. The Arabs felt they had been promised independence by the British in return for their support during the war, only to see Palestine being prepared as a homeland for another people. Meanwhile, Jewish immigration to Palestine increased, fueled by persecution in Europe and the Zionist dream of a Jewish state. This influx intensified the friction between Jews and Arabs, leading to sporadic violence and mutual distrust. In the aftermath of World War II and the Holocaust, the United Nations proposed the Partition Plan in 1947. This plan aimed to divide Palestine into separate Jewish and Arab states, with Jerusalem under international administration. However, the Arab states and leaders vehemently rejected the UN Partition Plan, arguing it violated the rights of the majority Arab population in Palestine. They perceived it as a continuation of a colonial policy of divide and rule, and a blatant favoritism towards the Jewish population. The rejection of the partition plan would lead to a series of wars and conflicts. And so, the stage was set for decades of strife in this small but significant piece of land. The roots of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict are deep and tangled, and understanding them is key to navigating the complex narratives that shape the region today. The birth of Israel was marked by war, and the occupation of Palestinian lands followed. The year 1948 saw the emergence of the Arab-Israeli War, an intense conflict that erupted immediately after the declaration of the State of Israel. The Arab states, refusing to accept the United Nations Partition Plan, launched a military intervention in an attempt to prevent the establishment of an independent Jewish state in Palestine. However, the Israeli forces, against all odds, managed to repel the Arab armies and even expanded their territory beyond the boundaries set by the UN. Fast forward to 1967, and we find ourselves in the midst of the Six-Day War. This was a brief but intense conflict involving Israel and a coalition of Arab states, including Egypt, Jordan, and Syria. The war was initiated by Israel, who launched a preemptive strike against Egypt. In a mere 6 days, Israel won a decisive victory, gaining control over the West Bank, Gaza Strip, Sinai Peninsula, and the Golan Heights. Following these victories, Israel began to establish settlements in the occupied territories, despite international law stating that an occupying power cannot transfer its citizens into the territories it occupies. These settlements, built on lands that Palestinians consider their own, have been a major source of tension between the two sides. Israel views these settlements as a necessary security measure and an expression of their historical and religious ties to the land, while Palestinians see them as an illegal encroachment on their rights and sovereignty. The occupation of the West Bank and Gaza, along with the establishment of Israeli settlements, has resulted in a complex and contentious situation. This occupation has had profound implications, affecting every aspect of life for the Palestinians living under it. While Israel has maintained that these actions are necessary for its security, Palestinians and many in the international community view them as a form of colonialism and a violation of Palestinians' human rights. The occupation and settlements would become a major point of contention in the years to come. Attempts at peace have been made, but the conflict continues. Let's journey back to the early 90s. The world watched with bated breath as the Oslo Accords were signed, a set of agreements between the government of Israel and the Palestine Liberation Organization. It seemed like a promising start, but, like a mirage in the desert, the hope evaporated. The accords fell short of establishing a Palestinian state, and the issues of settlements, borders, and the status of Jerusalem remained unresolved. In the year 2000, the Camp David Summit was convened with the aim to find a final status solution. But, alas, the summit collapsed without an agreement. The issues that had haunted the Oslo Accords reared their heads again. The failure of the summit was followed by the Second Intifada, a period of intense Palestinian-Israeli violence that lasted 5 years. The rise of Hamas in the early 21st century added a new dimension to the conflict. As a militant group, their tactics and refusal to recognize Israel's existence created more hurdles on the path to peace. Their political ascendance in 2006 further complicated the landscape. Fast forward to the present day, the struggle for peace continues. Recent years have seen renewed tensions over Jerusalem and settlements. Just a few months ago, Jordan's King Abdullah II expressed concerns over the status of Jerusalem's holy sites under Israel's right-wing government. He emphasized the importance of safeguarding the rights of Muslims and Christians in Jerusalem, highlighting the uneasy relationship between Jordan and Israel. The conflict also impacts the Christian communities in the region. Despite Jordan's efforts to provide a safe haven for Middle Eastern Christians and develop historical Christian sites, concerns persist about their treatment. Through it all, the world continues to watch, hope, and strive for a peaceful resolution. But as we stand here today, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict remains a puzzle with missing pieces. The path to peace remains elusive. As we stand in 2024, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict remains unresolved. Wading through the years of struggle, we find ourselves in the now, where the conflict continues to be a complex web of historical, political, and religious issues. The core concerns remain the same: settlements, borders, refugees, and the status of Jerusalem. Settlements, for starters, continue to be a major point of contention. Israeli settlements have expanded, and this growth has been met with global criticism, viewed as an obstacle to peace. These settlements are considered illegal under international law, yet they persist, making a two-state solution increasingly difficult to envision. Then, we have the intricate issue of borders. The question of where Israel ends and Palestine begins is not just about drawing lines on a map, it's about identity, security, and autonomy. It is about two nations striving for recognition and survival. The refugee crisis, too, adds another layer of complexity. Thousands of Palestinians were displaced during the wars and uprisings. Their longing for a return to their ancestral homes remains a painful echo in the backdrop of these discussions. And at the heart of it all lies Jerusalem, a city sacred to three religions, and claimed by both Israelis and Palestinians as their capital. The status of Jerusalem continues to be a flashpoint, with recent tensions over holy sites igniting fears of a new Palestinian uprising. The international community, while playing a crucial role, has often found itself in a delicate balancing act. Efforts towards peace have been made, with varying degrees of success. From peace treaties to peace plans, the world has tried and continues to try to untangle this Gordian knot. Yet despite the efforts, the conflict persists. New challenges arise, old wounds are reopened, and the cycle of violence continues. The situation now is a stark reminder of the inherent difficulties in resolving a conflict rooted in historical grievances and competing national narratives. The question remains, can a just and lasting peace be achieved?